If you're human, you're going to face fear. And so one of the things that A players do, that leaders without titles do, that iconic human beings do, is they develop a resilience or a hardiness in the face of fear. A story I remember reading in an Osho book a while ago. So there was this man, and he was a mountain climber. So he climbed the mountain and he reached the summit, but he sort of misjudged the timing and it became dark. And so he made his way down the mountain as the sun set, but he got to a place where it became so dark he couldn't move. And he thought he was on this ledge, and he just became paralyzed by fear. He just realized that, if he moved a few inches over, he would fall thousands and thousands of meters or feet to his death. And so all night, that was the most terrifying night of his life. He was on this ledge. He couldn't even move forward because he thought he'd fall. And he just stayed there frozen for hours and hours and hours. And then with the first rays of daylight, he started to laugh. And the reason he started to laugh was he realized just below the ledge, there was this huge stone platform. There was no danger whatsoever. It was just his perception of fear that caused him to feel terrified. And I think that's a powerful idea for us. The things that most frighten us, when we actually have the courage to do them, dissolve. I mean, just think about it. How many times there was something you were afraid to do, and maybe for years you avoided it. And then one day you decided to confront it. And when you ran towards the fear itself dissolved. And so what I want to do in this mastery session is offer you a few ideas to help you really cure fear. And the first idea is simply this: practice bravery training. You want to be a great footballer. We understand you've got to put in the time to practice. You want to be a great chef. We understand you've got to do the practice. You want to be a great entrepreneur. You've got to put in the hours of rigor and discipline building your business. You want to be a great chess champion. Of course, they're obsessed monomaniacally with practice. And yet when it comes to fear, we don't live in a society that values bravery training. You don't really hear people saying, go out and use this day to practice becoming fearless. And yet, we all know the 10,000 hour rule. We all know the 10-year rule pioneered by Anders Ericsson at University of Florida, the preeminent researcher in the field of exceptional performance. And that 10-year rule has now been popularized by a lot of authors. But what he found was this: if you look at any great performer, they had one thing in common. They spent the equivalent of 10 years or 10,000 hours practicing their skill before the first signs of genius showed up. And so to become fearless, why not find some time every day to practice becoming fearless? Why not use whatever irritates you or frustrates you or frightens you during your day as bravery training? So let's say your supervisor walks in and says, tomorrow I'd like to give you to give a presentation on that project you did so brilliantly on. And start to pay attention. You notice you start to feel afraid. Develop the mindset where you say, okay, I'm going to say yes, because that is bravery training. Let's say you go home and with your intimate partner, you want to speak up. You want to say something. Maybe you want to ask for more love. Maybe you want to ask for one of your needs to be met because you feel it's unmet. But then you feel, well, what if he or she judges me? What if I get laughed at? What if they think I'm strange? Develop the mindset where you recognize that everything that scares you is bravery training. Okay, so what I'm suggesting on the first insight is really practice becoming fearless, and you will become a fearless human being. The second thing, release your attachment to outcomes. Now you say, Robin, what are you talking about? One of the real reasons we don't do the things that frighten us is because we are afraid of being judged. We are afraid of failure. We are afraid of success. We are afraid of stumbling. What I'm suggesting to you is one of the reasons we don't really step into our heroic nature as human beings is because we're attached to the outcome. And so just developing the philosophy where you live in the moment, you do the things that frighten you, and you don't really worry about what happens. That will develop a sense of fearlessness and a sense of bravery. The third tool or the third tactic to become fearless: Hang with the heroes. Well, if you followed me before in other mastery sessions, or maybe it's Facebook or Instagram, or you've read my books, you know that I believe you become your conversations. Because listening to an audiobook or reading a book is nothing more than having a conversation with the author. And you do become the people you surround yourself with. And so what I'm encouraging you to become fearless is to read the books of people who have transcended adversity. I mean, it might be a Nelson Mandela, it might be an Elon Musk, it might be a Martin Luther King Jr., it might be someone in your neighborhood who overcame adversity and you decide to have a conversation over coffee with them. I mean, a lot of times the media will ask me, well, Robin, your books work for people who had great backgrounds, people who have a lot of money, people who had the lucky breaks. That's just not true. If you look at the people who've become iconic in business and in whatever the field might be, most of the time, those are people who actually came from nothing, or they had a lot of adversity, but the adversity allowed them to get to know their talents, the adversity developed their strength, the adversity allowed them to become better thinkers, and they actually used failure to develop greater levels of freedom. And one of the best ways to do that is to read the books or listen to the audiobooks or to spend time with people who've overcome adversity, who have been frightened, and they've transcended it to higher levels of confidence and bravery. And then the final thing I will offer to you is simply embrace the mess. You want to be fearless? Remember that the things that you now find easy were initially hard. You want to become fearless? Remember that every master was once a beginner. You want to become fearless? Remember that all change is hard at first and it's messy in the middle and it's beautiful at the end. And so as you go from where you now are to where you want to be in terms of your confidence and your fearlessness, welcome the mess. I mean, progress is messy. Standing in the fire of your next level of potential is terrifying, but you have a choice. You can spend the best hours of your best days as a timid soul, locked into your current thinking, locked into your current emotional life. And that's just a recipe for stagnation. And that's really just a recipe for a life filled with regret. The second choice you can make is embrace the mess. Do the things that frighten you. Ask yourself, what things are blocking me and limiting me in my potential, in my life, in my income, in my creativity, in my happiness? And literally take out a piece of paper and start to record the things that you're frightened to do, because every single thing you're frightened to do is carrying a little bit of your power or a lot of your power. And the moment you actually do the thing that you're frightened to do, you take back your power that you gave to that condition and you become a more powerful person. And if you do that every day by using every day as a platform for higher levels of bravery, then the rest of your life is just an exercise in you becoming world class.